In my first week of retirement, my son told me he wouldn't feed another mouth, so he pushed me into a job. I nodded with a smile, but when I skipped my first day, he discovered a truth that turned his world upside down. The dining room went dead silent, save for the clink of Ethan's fork hitting the hardwood floor. My son's face, flushed with a mix of shock and fury, stared at me across the oak table, his eyes boring into mine like I'd just confessed to torching his house. I'd just announced my retirement, 40 years of grinding it out. And I thought, maybe naively, that my family would raise a glass, maybe crack open cheap Merlot we saved for birthdays. Instead, I got this. Ethan's jaw clenched. His wife Sarah's lips pursed into a thin, judgmental line. "You're retiring?" Ethan spat, his voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Just like that? Dad, you can't just quit." I forced a smile, my heart sinking like a stone in Lake Union. This wasn't the homecoming I'd pictured driving back to our Seattle suburb, the cedar-shingled house nestled among evergreens, their needles whispering against the windows in the evening breeze. I'd imagined hugs, pride, maybe Ethan clapping me on the shoulder saying, "You earned it, Pops." Instead, I'm a freeloader in my own damn house. The dining room, with its mismatched chairs and a view of the misty Puget Sound, felt smaller tonight, the air thick with tension. The table was set with Sarah's attempt at pot roast, overcooked, like her patience with me. I'm James Harper, 65, widower, father, and, apparently, persona non grata. Ethan, my only son, is 35, a mid-level manager at Horizon Tech, with his pressed shirts and a chip on his shoulder bigger than the Space Needle. Sarah, his wife, is 33, an accountant with a sharp tongue and sharper ambitions, her manicured nails tapping the table like a countdown to my exile. We're family, sure, but tonight, we're strangers sharing a meal and a grudge. "I've worked 40 years, Ethan," I said, keeping my voice steady, though my chest tightened. "I've earned a break." Sarah snorted, setting her water glass down with a deliberate thud. "A break? James, you think we're running a charity here? Another mouth to feed isn't in the budget." Her words hit like a sucker punch. Budget? I paid for Ethan's Stanford degree, $80,000 over 4 years, eating ramen to make it happen. I covered half their wedding, a $20,000 Napa Valley blowout with string lights and overpriced Pinot. And this house, my house, where they live rent-free, they don't mention that. I leaned back, the chair creaking under me, the sound of distant waves outside barely calming the storm brewing inside. "I thought we'd celebrate," I said, my smile fading. "Celebrate?" Ethan's voice rose, his manager tone kicking in, the one he uses to boss around interns. "Dad, reality check. I work 60 hours a week to keep this roof over our heads. You can't just sit around living off my dime." The words stung, each one a jab at the sacrifices I'd buried for his sake. I raised him, bandaged his knees, coached his little league games in the rain-soaked fields of Bellevue. I sold my old Mustang to cover his tuition when scholarships fell short. And now? I'm dead weight. Sarah nodded, her blonde bob bouncing like she was judging a dog show. "James, you're 65, not 85. My uncle's 70, still stocks shelves at Costco. You can work." I stared at my plate, the pot roast congealing under the dim chandelier. The room's warmth, the cedar walls, the flicker of candles, felt like a lie. "You're right," I said softly, playing the defeated dad they expected. I should have talked it over. Ethan's shoulders relaxed, thinking he'd won. "Good. I've got a janitor gig lined up at Horizon Tech. Minimum wage, but beggars can't be choosers, right? That phrase, beggars can't be choosers, cut deeper than the rest. I nodded, my face a mask, while inside, a cold, calculating anger took root. After dinner, they retreated to the living room, the TV blaring some reality show about house flippers. I stayed at the table, the house settling around me, the creak of floorboards and the distant hum of ferries crossing the sound filling the silence. I cleared the dishes, my hands moving on autopilot, the clink of plates echoing my thoughts. They see me as a burden, a leech, me, who built their life. I shuffled to my small bedroom at the back, past framed photos of Ethan's graduation, his wedding, moments I'd paid for in sweat and sleepless nights. The room was sparse. A twin bed, a scratched dresser, a window framing the dark, restless water. I lay down, still in my flannel shirt, staring at the ceiling where streetlights cast shifting shadows. Then I heard them through the thin walls, their voices low but clear, like a radio tuned to betrayal. "He thinks he can just mooch off us," Ethan said, his tone bitter. "Retire? On my salary? No way." Sarah's voice was colder, practical. "If he won't work, we take his pension, put him in a home. Sunrise Manor's cheap, $3,000 a month." My knuckles whitened, gripping the quilt. A nursing home? My pension, the modest $2,100 a month from decades at the factory, was my lifeline. They wanted to strip it, warehouse me like old furniture. "He's been freeloading since Mom died," Sarah continued. "Free meals, free roof. He's got some nerve." Freeloading. I paid off this house in 2005. I covered Ethan's student loans when he defaulted. I gave them $15,000 for their down payment. And now I'm the freeloader? Their laughter drifted through the wall, casual, cruel, like they were planning a vacation, not my exile. I lay there, the Puget Sound's waves a faint roar outside, my mind racing. They thought I was helpless, a broke old man with nothing but social security and a bad back. They were wrong. Dead wrong. Didn't sleep. The clock ticked past midnight, the house quiet except for the occasional creak of settling wood and the distant bark of a neighbor's dog. I thought of my old colleague, Tom, who got a fishing boat from his kids when he retired. Linda, from accounting, got a cruise to Alaska. Me? I get ultimatums over pot roast. But beneath the hurt, something else stirred. A sharp, focused rage I hadn't felt since my 20s, when I fought tooth and nail to climb out of debt. They wanted to play dirty, treat me like a pawn in their budget spreadsheet. Fine. I'd show them who James Harper really was. 20 years ago, I sank $600,000 into Horizon Tech, Michael Ross's startup, when it was just a dream in a Redmond garage. My loan was a handshake deal, no paperwork to complicate things. Now, Horizon employs 4,000, a tech giant powering half of Seattle's economy. Ethan works there, clueless that his paycheck comes from the company his dad helped build. They saw kindness, mistook it for weakness. Big mistake. Morning came, gray light filtering through the pines outside. I shuffled into the kitchen, the scent of coffee mixing with the damp earthiness of the Pacific Northwest. Ethan stood by the counter in his weekend jeans, scrolling his phone. Sarah buttered toast at the table, her eyes flicking up as I entered. "Morning," I said, pouring a mug, my voice steady. "I've been thinking, Ethan. You're right. I need to pull my weight." Ethan's mug froze mid-air, suspicion narrowing his eyes. Sarah's knife paused, butter dripping onto the plate. They'd braced for a fight, not surrender. "Seriously?" Ethan asked, his tone skeptical. "No arguments?" I shook my head, sipping my coffee, the bitterness matching my mood. What's the point? A man my age should contribute. Sarah's lips twitched, almost a smirk. Good. There's a janitor spot at Horizon. Starts Monday, 7 a.m. I nodded, suppressing a smile. Perfect. I'll take it. Ethan blinked, thrown off by my compliance. Just like that? Honest work's honest work, I said, meeting Sarah's gaze. She patted my hand, condescending as hell. See, James? Facing reality isn't so hard. Reality? If only they knew. I'd spent 20 years letting them think I was scraping by, my wealth tucked away in accounts they'd never see. Horizon Tech's dividends alone could buy this neighborhood. But I let them believe I was just a factory grunt, living paycheck to paycheck, because I wanted to see who they'd become without the shadow of money. Turns out, they became people who'd sell their own father for a balanced budget. Ethan pulled out his phone, muttering about calling Michael to confirm the hire. I watched, imagining Michael's confusion when he heard my name. My old friend, my business partner, the man who'd built an empire with my seed money. It'll be good to have purpose again, I said, my voice dripping with sincerity. Ethan nodded, satisfied, thinking he'd tamed the old man. He had no idea what was coming. Monday morning, I sat in the kitchen, the Seattle Times spread before me, the smell of rain-soaked cedar drifting through the open window. Ethan had spent the week prepping me like I was some rookie, buying cleaning supplies, lecturing me on punctuality. I played along, nodding, while counting down to today. At 8:15, my phone buzzed. Ethan's voice exploded through the speaker. Dad, where the hell are you? Michael's pissed. You were supposed to start at 7. I leaned back, feigning confusion. Oh, Ethan, I'm so sorry. Was it 7? My old brain's slipping, his voice cracked with panic. I vouched for you, said you'd be reliable. Now I look like an idiot. I pictured Michael, probably wondering why his biggest shareholder was being pitched as a janitor. I'll come in tomorrow, I offered, my tone all innocence. Tomorrow, you're there at 7:45? Or I swear? He hung up, fuming. I folded the paper, a slow smile spreading. Phase 1, complete. Ethan was rattled, his ego bruised, but the real blow was brewing. That afternoon, I sat at my desk, the window framing a view of ferries cutting through the Sound's gray waters. 2 folders lay before me, one with Sarah's expense reports, nabbed from the kitchen counter months ago when she left them by her coffee mug. The other held real records, courtesy of Laura Bennett, my forensic accountant friend. Sarah had been skimming $22,000 from her firm, inflating costs like a pro. 400 office supplies billed as 900, 600 repairs listed as $1,600. Clever, but not clever enough. I opened my laptop, the room quiet except for the hum of my shredder. The email was ready. Dear Mr. Caldwell, I'm alerting you to embezzlement by Sarah Harper. Attached evidence shows $22,000 in falsified expenses. Investigate immediately. A concerned citizen. I attached the scans, checked my anonymous account, and hovered over Send. Their laughter echoed in my mind. Nursing home, dead weight. I clicked. The email vanished, carrying Sarah's career with it. I fed the papers into the shredder, watching them turn to confetti. Outside, the Sound churned, dark and restless, mirroring the storm I'd unleashed. Tonight, they'd learn not to underestimate James Harper. The afternoon sun slanted through my study's window, painting the cedar walls in hues of amber and gold, the air thick with the scent of old books and the faint, briny tang of Puget Sound. I sat at my desk, the shredder's hum fading as the last of Sarah's falsified expense reports turned to ribbons. My laptop screen glowed with the confirmation of my anonymous email to Mr. Caldwell, Sarah's boss. 28 attachments, scanned invoices, bank records, a meticulously crafted timeline of her $22,000 theft, had vanished into cyberspace, a digital guillotine poised to sever her career. I leaned back, the leather chair creaking, and sipped my cooling coffee. Outside, gulls wheeled over the misty Elliott Bay, their cries sharp against the distant hum of ferries. The calm was deceptive. A storm was coming, and I'd lit the fuse. By 6:17 p.m., the front door slammed, the sound reverberating through our Seattle bungalow like a gunshot. Sarah's heels clicked frantically across the hardwood, each step a staccato of panic. I folded the Seattle Times, setting it on the coffee table, and looked up as she appeared in the living room doorway. Her usually pristine appearance was a wreck. Mascara streaked down her cheeks, her blonde bob tangled, her blouse wrinkled like she'd been clutching it in fear. She collapsed onto the sofa, clutching her purse as if it could anchor her. The living room, with its navy throw pillows and a panoramic view of the foggy bay, felt colder despite the gas fireplace flickering in the corner. "Sarah," I said, rising halfway, my voice laced with practiced concern. "What's wrong?" "You're shaking." Her eyes, red-rimmed and wild, met mine. "They're firing me, James," she gasped, her voice breaking. "Someone sent my boss evidence, documents, bank records, saying I've been stealing." I tilted my head, feigning shock, though my pulse quickened with satisfaction. "Stealing? That's absurd. Who would do such a thing?" She buried her face in her hands, a sob escaping. "I don't know. It's anonymous. They have everything, dates, amounts, even photos of my reports. It's like someone's been spying on me for months." I moved closer, perching on the armrest, the fog outside swirling like my thoughts. "That's awful," I said, softening my tone. "What are they claiming?" Her voice trembled as she spoke, each word a confession she didn't know she was making to the architect of her downfall. "They say I inflated expenses, office supplies, repairs. A $400 order became $900. A $600 bill became $1,600. They've got proof, James. It's airtight." Airtight. My word, not hers, now echoing back. I'd spent weeks with Laura Bennett, my forensic accountant friend, piecing together Sarah's scheme. Every falsified invoice, every padded receipt, was a brick in the wall I'd built to trap her. I patted her shoulder, the gesture grandfatherly, though inside I was cataloging her every word. "Surely it's a mistake," I said. "You're honest, Sarah. Anyone would vouch for you." She laughed bitterly, wiping her nose with a crumpled tissue. "Honest? The evidence doesn't lie. They've suspended me, James. External auditors are coming tomorrow. They'll dig through every transaction I've touched." The fireplace crackled, casting shadows across her face, her despair as palpable as the rain tapping the windows. "Have you told Ethan?" I asked, letting worry creep into my voice. Her face crumpled further. "Not yet. He's already stressed. Your no-show at work today humiliated him." I nodded, hiding the spark of triumph. Phase 1 had worked. Ethan's embarrassment at Horizon Tech, where I deliberately skipped my janitor shift, had rattled his carefully curated image. Now Phase 2 was unfolding, Sarah's career unraveling like cheap yarn. The front door opened again, Ethan's heavy footsteps thundering down the hall. He appeared, tie loosened, shirt rumpled, his face a storm cloud. The living room seemed to shrink under his presence, the bay's fog pressing against the windows like a silent witness. "What's going on?" he demanded, dropping his briefcase with a thud. His eyes flicked to Sarah's tear-streaked face, then to me, narrowing with accusation. "What did you do, Dad?" His voice was a blade, sharp and reckless. I raised my hands, palms out, the picture of innocence. "Ethan, I didn't—" "Don't lie," he snapped, stepping toward Sarah, who shrank into the sofa. "I come home to my wife crying, and you're just sitting there like it's nothing. First you blow off work, make me look like a fool in front of Michael Ross. And now this." Sarah raised a trembling hand. "Chris, it's not him. It's me." His head whipped toward her. "What?" Her confession spilled out, raw and desperate. "I've been suspended. Someone sent anonymous evidence to my boss, claiming I've been embezzling. They have everything: reports, receipts, bank records." Ethan froze, his face draining of color, as if the room's air had been sucked out. "Embezzling?" he whispered, sinking into a chair, his hands gripping his hair. "That's impossible. You're the most honest person I know." Sarah's voice grew frantic. "That's what I told them. But the evidence? It's too perfect. Someone's been watching me, Ethan. They knew exactly what to look for." I watched him cycle through shock, denial, panic. His world, built on control and ambition, was cracking. "This can't be happening," he muttered. "Not now. Not when everything's falling apart." Sarah frowned, momentarily distracted. "What do you mean, everything?" Ethan's gaze snapped to me, resentment blazing. "Dad decided to play games. Didn't show up for the janitor job I set up. I vouched for him, told Michael he'd be reliable. Now I'm the idiot who hired an unreliable old man." I leaned forward, my voice soft, almost apologetic. "It was a mix-up, son. I got the time wrong." His fist slammed the coffee table, rattling the wine glasses. "No more excuses. Tomorrow you're coming with me to Horizon Tech. I'm driving you myself to make sure you show up. No tricks, no senior moments. My reputation's on the line." Sarah looked between us, confusion mingling with her own crisis. "Ethan, calm down." "Calm down?" he roared. "My wife's facing criminal charges, my father's sabotaging my career, and I'm supposed to stay calm?" I met his glare, my voice steady. "Don't worry, son. Tomorrow will be different." He paused, caught off guard by my calm. "It better be," he growled, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Or I'm done. Nursing home, pension, everything we talked about, I'll make it happen." The threat hung in the air, heavy as the fog outside. I nodded, my face solemn, but inside, I was a coiled spring. Tomorrow would be different, all right. Not because of Ethan's ultimatums, but because I'd planned it that way. The room fell silent, the rain's rhythm against the windows mirroring the tension. 3 people, 1 family, each trapped in their own crisis, none suspecting the threads I'd woven to bind them. I excused myself, retreating to my bedroom, the narrow space with its single bed and view of the churning sound. I lay down, the quilt rough under my fingers, and let the night's revelations settle. Ethan thought he held the cards. Sarah thought she could hide her theft. They were both wrong. Morning broke with a drizzle. Seattle's skyline shrouded in mist as Ethan and I climbed into his SUV. He gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, his jaw set like he was marching into battle. The city unfolded around us. Coffee shops glowing through the fog, commuters huddling under umbrellas. The Space Needle, a faint silhouette. I sat quietly, the janitor's uniform he'd bought me stiff and scratchy. a costume for the performance I'd rehearsed in my mind. "Let's be clear," Ethan said, his voice tight as we navigated the wet streets. "No games today. No forgetting the time. No excuses. You show up. You work. You make me look good. Michael's already questioning my judgment." I nodded, staring out at the rain-slicked skyscrapers. "I understand, son." He glanced at me, suspicious. "What's with the tone? You're too calm." I smiled faintly. "Just seeing things clearly now." He grunted, unconvinced, and pulled into Horizon Tech's parking lot, the glass and steel building gleaming despite the gray sky. We walked through the lobby, the marble floor reflecting fluorescent lights, the air humming with the energy of a 4,000-employee tech empire. Ethan strode ahead, nodding to the security guard, who waved us through. I carried the mop and bucket he'd thrust into my hands, the weight a prop in this final act. "Stay close and keep quiet," he muttered as we entered a bustling corridor. Employees hurried past, clutching laptops, their voices a low buzz of deadlines and deals. I recognized faces, engineers I'd hired indirectly, managers who'd benefited from my investment. None noticed the old man in coveralls trailing Ethan. We rounded a corner, and there he was, Michael Ross, Horizon's CEO, striding toward us, his tablet glowing with data. At 62, he was all silver hair and sharp suits, his presence commanding the hallway. "Mr. Ross?" Ethan called, his voice bright with forced enthusiasm. "Perfect timing. I've brought the new janitor, my dad." Michael stopped dead, his eyes flicking to me, then back to Ethan. For a moment, his face was unreadable, a mask of confusion. Then recognition hit, followed by a fury so cold it seemed to freeze the air. "Ethan," he said, his voice low, dangerous. "You brought James Harper here? As a janitor?" Ethan puffed up, oblivious. "Yes, sir. Solved a staffing issue and a family problem in one go." The hallway quieted, employees slowing to watch. Michael's gaze locked on me, then returned to Ethan, his voice rising. "Do you have any idea who this man is?" Ethan blinked, thrown. "My father, sir. He needed work." Michael's laugh was sharp, humorless. "Your father owns 40% of Horizon Tech. He invested $600,000 20 years ago, back when we were coding in my garage. Without him, this company wouldn't exist. Your job wouldn't exist." Ethan's face went white, his mouth opening soundlessly. The mop slipped in my hands, clattering to the floor, the sound echoing like a gavel. "Impossible," Ethan whispered, his eyes darting to me. I set the bucket down, straightening, shedding the submissive posture I'd worn like a second skin. "It's true," I said, my voice calm but firm, carrying the weight of decades. "I kept it quiet, Ethan. Wanted to see what kind of man you'd be without the shadow of wealth." Michael stepped closer, his anger now a controlled burn. "You forced your father, my business partner, into a janitor's role. You're fired, Ethan. Clear your desk. Security's waiting." Ethan's briefcase hit the floor, the crack drawing gasps from onlookers. He looked at me, betrayal and panic in his eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" I met his gaze, unflinching. "I wanted to know if you'd respect me for me, not my money. You didn't. You called me a burden, threatened to take my pension, send me to a home." Michael's jaw tightened. "You did what?" I turned to him, my voice steady. "He and Sarah plan to strip me bare. Speaking of Sarah, she's facing charges for embezzling $22,000 from her firm. I made sure her boss knew." Ethan staggered, as if I'd struck him. "You knew about Sarah?" I nodded, my voice dropping to a near whisper, intimate, cutting. I know everything, son. Always have. The corridor was silent now, employees frozen, the drama unfolding like a live wire. Michael placed a hand on my shoulder, his voice softening. James, why the charade? I sighed, the weight of years settling. I needed to know who they were. I gave them everything. College, a wedding, this house. They repaid me with contempt. Ethan's face crumpled, no words left. I turned to Michael. I'm done playing roles. I'm retiring my way. He nodded, respect in his eyes. This is your company, James. Always will be. We left Ethan standing there, a broken man in a glass corridor, his world shattered. As Michael and I walked to his office, the skyline visible through towering windows, I felt taller, lighter. The rain had stopped, sunlight breaking through the clouds, casting Seattle in a rare golden glow. Justice wasn't just served, it was reclaimed. I'd spent 40 years building a legacy, only to be dismissed as dead weight. Now I stood where I belonged, not as a charity case, but as James Harper, investor, father, and a man who'd learned the cost of trust. The future stretched ahead, uncharted, but mine to shape. And for the first time in days, I smiled, truly smiled, as the city hummed below, ready for whatever came next.